welcome, and grand rising to all you beautiful souls of light and my friends. I am Cindy Lorraine Grace with CLG Viewpoint, and today it is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. Under natural law in the Kingdom of Canada, it is Divina Vita 220035. That's Divina Vita, Divine Life. Day 22 of year 0035. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I sure did, with family and friends. And I'm just so blessed that you are here with me today. And we are going to cover today, researchers develop 3D holograms. You can touch, grab, and move. International news, China replacing U.S. oil with Canadian. Local news, Canadian military veterans, class action lawsuit over moldy warships denied. Government lawsuit to seize property says house was being used as illegal cannabis drug lab. On the brink, Ontario mom one payment away from going back to work. And then I'm a woman hopes new self-care center will give people permission to rest, reflect, and reconnect. Well, each segment, I like to start with a sage clearing. For some of you who haven't heard of a sage clearing, it's a process where I take a sage stick and I grow sage in my garden. Love it. I love the smell. And it clears all the negative energies, leaving only positive energy in our space, in your space as well. There we go. Only divine love and divine light is welcome here. Sending all negative energies back to your perfect place and escorted by my spiritual guides. So it is. Divine light, divine love. Okay, on to the video. 3D holograms. You can touch, grab, and move.
Researchers at the Universidad Pública de Navarra have created something that feels almost like science fiction, a 3D display you can actually reach into with your bare hands. Called FlexiVol, this system lets users interact directly with virtual content floating in space, no headsets, gloves, or controllers required. It marks a shift in how we might engage with digital environments, offering a more hands-on, natural experience. FlexiVol builds on the principle of swept volumetric displays, which project 2D slices onto a moving diffuser to form a 3D image. These images are created through persistence of vision. Conventional systems use a rigid diffuser that prevents physical interaction. FlexiVol replaces this component with a set of elastic strips, allowing users to insert their hands into the display volume and interact with rendered objects. The system uses a projector and oscillating diffuser strips to form the 3D image. The projector outputs slices at high frame rates, synchronized with the movement of the diffuser. The elastic diffuser enables direct physical interaction without damaging the display or harming the user. The researchers tested several materials for use as the diffuser. These included elastane, silicone, and projection fabrics. They evaluated each based on optical performance, stiffness, frequency response, and deformation. Elastic bands composed of polyester and elastane were selected due to their performance across all tests. To address visual distortion caused by the movement of the elastic diffuser, the team developed a correction algorithm. This model predicts the shape of the diffuser at any point during oscillation and adjusts the projected image accordingly. A polynomial function is applied to correct mesh vertices, preserving the integrity of the 3D content. FlexiVol allows users to reach through the diffuser to manipulate 3D content. Interactions occur when users touch or pass between diffuser strips. The system supports gestures such as grasping, pinching, pushing, rotating, and sliding. These gestures map to actions like selection, scaling, movement, and tracing. The system does not use abstract metaphors or indirect control schemes. The alignment between hand position and rendered objects allows for interactions that follow physical movement patterns. A study with 18 participants compared FlexiVol with a 3D mouse. Participants completed 3 tasks: selection, tracing, and docking. The study measured completion time, positional accuracy, and perceived workload. Reach-through interaction resulted in faster completion times and reduced cognitive workload. Accuracy was slightly reduced compared to the 3D mouse. Most participants preferred using their hands. Several noted that interaction felt more familiar and did not require explanation. Participants also reported that inserting their hands into the display felt safe and comfortable. Some described sensations from the oscillating diffuser. A few expressed interest in expanded gesture options, such as using both hands or more complex motions. FlexiVol could be used in modeling, visualization, education, games, and medical training. Participants suggested potential uses such as surgery planning, collaborative design, and digital content manipulation. The display system also produces less noise.
Pretty amazing, these new technology. Now, on to international news. China replacing U.S. oil with Canadian. Bloomberg, RT News, April the 17th, 2025. Beijing has reportedly slashed purchases of American crude by 90% amid the tariff war. China has been importing record amounts of crude oil from Canada and drastically reducing supplies from the U.S. in light of the trade war with Washington, Bloomberg reported on Wednesday. Washington and Beijing have implemented a series of reciprocal tariff hikes over the past 2 months, in light of which the latter has slashed purchases of U.S. oil by roughly 90%, according to the outlet. China previously indicated that it would not implement more tariff hikes against U.S. goods, but would rather employ alternative ways to retaliate. Chinese crude imports from a port near Vancouver on Vancouver's Pacific coast soared to a record 7.3 million barrels in March and may exceed the figure this month, Bloomberg reported, citing data from London-based global oil and gas cargo tracking firm Vortexa Limited. Chinese imports of U.S. oil, meanwhile, have fallen to 3 million barrels per month from a peak of 29 million last June, it added. China's direct imports of Canadian crude oil had historically been minimal, primarily due to infrastructure constraints. Chinese refineries have mainly sourced crude from the Middle East and Russia. Roughly 1.7% of China's total crude imports came from the U.S. last year, according to Chinese customs data shown 2.5% down in 2023. Nearly all of Canadians' oil is shipped to the U.S. to be processed there or re-exported to Asia. However, the completion last May of the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline, which takes crude to Canada's Pacific coast, provided the country with an alternative route to export more volumes directly, primarily to Asia, thus reducing its reliance on the U.S. Given the trade war, it's unlikely for China to import more U.S. oil. Bloomberg quoted Renran Jiang, president of the Canada-China Energy and Environmental Forum, as saying, "They are not going to bank on Russian alone or Middle Eastern alone. Anything from Canada will be welcome news." China accounted for roughly 5% of U.S. crude oil exports last year, according to ship tracking data from Kepler. Russia remains China's largest supplier of crude oil, Russian shipments to China reached the highest level on record 2024. The increase in recent years is largely attributable to the discounts being offered on Russian crude. China's imports of oil from Saudi Arabia, its second largest supplier, declined by 9% year on year in 2024. My personal thoughts. Tariff wars only harm the people of our planet. We have already achieved peace under natural law. Local news. Canadian military veterans class action lawsuit over moldy, yes, moldy, warships denied. CTV News, written by Todd Coyne, April 18, 2025. A federal court judge has struck down a proposed class action lawsuit filed on behalf of current and former Canadian military members, alleging exposure to dangerous levels of toxic mold. Yes, dangerous levels of toxic mold on Canada's warships. Plaintiff Felix Dunn claimed the Canadian Armed Forces was aware, or should have been aware, of the presence of harmful mold on its naval vessels, and was therefore negligent in maintaining the ships and preventing foreseeable harm in the workplace. Dunn was stationed aboard HMCS Vancouver, a Halifax-class frigate and one of the largest vessels in the Royal Canadian Navy from June to December 2016, when he started complaining of chills, fever, fatigue, and a burning and tightness in his chest, accompanied by a cough the court heard. He later discovered that he believed to be black mold growing from the fittings in the pipes on the ship. Justice Cecilia Strickland wrote in her summary of the case. Shortly thereafter, he was diagnosed with exercise-induced asthma, sleep apnea, and chronic rhinitis. Dunn, who was released from the military in 2022, told the court that although he was treated with antibiotics while serving on the frigate, he never fully recovered. He continues to suffer violent swings in temperature, breathing troubles, and a compromised quality of life, he said. Dunn would go on to claim various disability benefits through Veterans Affairs Canada, while also filing the claim for a proposed class action case on behalf of all current and former CAF members who served on naval vessels from January 2000 onwards. In early 2021, Veterans Affairs awarded Dunn partial disability benefits for his cough and chronic rhinitis, confirming these injuries arose out of his service to the country. He also won a medical release from the CAF for his duty-related injuries, and by the following year, he had collected more than $150,000 in additional payments for pain and suffering, according to the court. The Attorney General of Canada, however, in moving to strike the class action claim, argued that Dunn had already been sufficiently compensated for his injuries through Veterans Affairs. The judge agreed. In my view, the plaintiff's claim in this case relies on the same factual basis that led to compensation being paid to him by VAC, Veterans Affairs Canada. That is the presence of mold on a CAF ship to which the plaintiff was exposed in the course of his CAF duties, causing him injury, Strickland wrote in her April 9th decision. Thus, the compensation paid or payable to him is a bar to the action against the Crown because it is made on the same factual basis as the plaintiff's action. More specifically, the compensation was given in respect of the identical injury or disease which forms the basis of the claim. double recovery. The Federal Crown Liability and Proceedings Act prevents the so-called double recovery of compensation from the federal government for claims arising from a previously compensated misconduct, according to a 2002 Supreme Court of Canada decision cited by the judge. Another barrier to the success of Dunn's claim was that he didn't file grievances about the presence of mold or other toxins while still in uniform, the judge noted. The Attorney General argued Dunn's complaints were essentially workplace grievances that should have been raised through the military's dispute resolution system to be investigated and resolved before resorting to a class action proposal. Here again, the judge sided with the federal government. I agree with the Attorney General of Canada that the court should decline jurisdiction given the comprehensive CAF dispute resolution scheme, Strickland wrote. There is also no evidence that the plaintiff sought to grieve any matter related to workplace safety, injury, or illness while serving in the CAF, and he does not assert otherwise. In granting the federal government's motion to strike down the class action proposal, the judge ruled Ottawa was entitled to recover its costs for the proceedings, which the Attorney General declined. Personal thoughts. It is actually appalling and disheartening how the well-being of our military is not taken seriously or compassionately. Therefore, neglect in maintaining the ships and preventing foreseeable harm to the military members from toxic substances and mold in the workplace. Thus, a full forensic audit is due, quick, fast, in a hurry, under natural law for the conditions of our military vessels. And so it is. Government lawsuit to seize property says house was being used as illegal cannabis drug lab. Ladysmith Shamanus Chronicle, written by Dan Ferguson, April 19, 2025. A Langley house that exploded, killing one person and seriously injuring two others, was being used as a drug lab, according to a civil forfeiture action to seize the property filed in BC's Supreme Court. It was filed April 16 by the Director of Civil Forfeiture in the Provincial Attorney General's Ministry against the owners of the house at 7340 196th Street. The house caught fire and exploded on February 28, damaging several nearby homes in what the claim described as a densely populated residential neighborhood that has two nearby daycare centers. 3 people are named in the claim. Hung Man Tran, one of 2 registered owners of the house who suffered severe burns in the fire, along with Brian Tran and Thai Ngoan Lam, the other registered owner, whose remains were found in the collapsed building. An RCMP search found cannabis preparation processing laboratory, including butane propane tanks and cannabis packaging materials in the wreckage, the claim said. It described how the house exploded, caught on fire, and collapsed, and how H. Tran and B. Tran exited the residence wearing aprons over their clothes and were transported to hospital with severe burns. Now on to the video.
Coming back from getting my mail, I was walking up through the aisle in the townhome complex, and all of a sudden, woof, big explosion. I thought at first it was a vehicle hitting a house. And when I got out here, I'd seen the white cloud of smoke coming up, and I seen all the insulation blowing out that way. So the walls went out, the roof went up, and then the roof came down right inside the house. And then about 5 minutes after that, the fire started. And then you could hear crunching and crackling, and 2 men came out, made it to the sidewalk. You could see one took the explosion right in his face. And then the one guy was crying that his mom was still in there. Before you know it, in about 5 minutes, the whole house was engulfed, and it was taking the houses beside it too. Went up really fast.
Personal thoughts. This explosion could have done so much more harm and damage, as it occurred in a densely populated residential community of homes and 2 daycare centers. All who were involved with this illegal drug lab will be held accountable and tried under natural law. On the brink, Ontario mom, one payment away from going back to work. Global News, written by Sawyer Bogdan, published April 19, 2025. This is the latest installment of Global News series called On the Brink. These days, Cheyenne Allen says her family must count every dollar they have just to get by. The 34-year-old event planner and soon-to-be mother of 2 from London, Ontario, says 20 years ago owning a home and living off 2 incomes would have been stable. But ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, things have changed. I spent a lot of time in my 20s working 2 part-time jobs and going to school, and I was just making it, she told Global News. Now I'm in my career. My husband has his career. He bought this house in 2019, and we were doing well. And then the pandemic hit. It doesn't go as far as it used to. Ellen said she and her husband, a boilermaker, bring in roughly $147,000 a year before taxes. With that income, she feels they should have more opportunities to be better off. Doesn't go as far as it used to. It just doesn't, Ellen said. This situation isn't unique to Ellen and her family. Mosh Lander, an economics professor at Concordia University, said, over the past 5 years, Canadians' buying power has been seen a noticeable drop. However, it's been steadily declining since the 1980s. If you earn $20 an hour and a Big Mac costs around $7, then you're working for 3 Big Macs an hour equivalent. If in the past you were working for 2 Big Macs an hour, then it really doesn't matter how many dollars you were earning. Your purchasing power is increased because you can now buy more Big Macs with 1 hour of your time than you could in the past, he said. What's happened then is that essentially the prices of the Big Macs have risen faster than the dollar amounts that we've earned at our job have risen. So the number of Big Macs that we can purchase has fallen. With the post-pandemic increase in the cost of living and a growing family, Allen says they stress about where each dollar is going. The couple pays roughly $2,000 a month right now for a mortgage, but they also have condo fees that keep going up. While on a reasonably low rate now, Allen says she is worried about their mortgage coming up for renewal in 2 years, right around the time her maternity leave will end for their second child. That's kind of scary because that's when I'll have to go back to work and looking at healthcare costs for 2 babies, and it's hard, she said. With a 1.5-year-old and a second on the way, Allen said costs can quickly add up. I was lucky enough to be able to nurse my baby, so I hope that I'll be able to do so with the second one, because the price of formula is staggering, Allen said. With baby formula costing around $50 per week, Allen said it leaves some families deciding between what bills to pay and feeding their child. While Allen tries to find deals, she said it can be hard to find good quality baby items, even secondhand, with everything feeling picked though. Her daughter is currently in daycare part-time at $600 a month, but the cost would be $1,000 a month if she were there full-time. While she tried to get her daughter on a list for a $10 a day childcare spot when she was 5 months pregnant, nearly 2 years later, she is yet to hear back. Allen worries about what will happen when she returns to work after her maternity leave is over. It seems like we're just one bill away from paying to go back to work. If we don't end up hearing from one of the $10 a day daycares, we're going to have to seriously look at other options, she said. The 15th Annual Food Price Report, released in December 2024 by a partnership of 4 Canadian universities, predicts that in 2025, food prices will increase overall by 3 to 5%. The report says that the average family of 4 is expected to spend $16,833.67 on food in 2025, an increase of $801.56 from 2024. That's a huge increase. The report found that food affordability remains a major concern for Canadians. It is a concern shared by Ellen, who thinks the prices of essential items should be better controlled. Ellen said her family has started gardening and preserving food as one of the many ways to combat food costs. But with the impact of the U.S. trade war is having, she is considering expanding her garden. People need food to live. People need water to live, Ellen said. And I think it's a little extortionate. Yes, extortionate. To pay $6 for a little half a pint of blueberries. And on to the video.
We're counting every dollar meticulously to make sure that we can stretch it to make it until he gets back, because my income's not enough alone, and him on EI on layoff is not enough to make it with taxes, bills, groceries, gas, and everything. Thinking about going back to work after this next baby and the cost of childcare there, it seems like we're just one bill away from me paying to go back to work. A $50 can of formula isn't going to make it a week for you. And when you're on maternity leave and you're still trying to pay your mortgage or your rent, you're trying to pay your hydro bills, your internet bills, your food bill, gas, insurance, and everything. It's just, sometimes you have to choose between something and feeding your baby. And now I'm in my career. My husband has his career. He bought this house in 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and now we're just doing. And it feels like we should have more opportunity with the incomes that we have. And when you're faced with the possibility of not being able to have everything that everybody needs, it's scary.
It sure is scary for these people, for all of us in Canada, with all the high costs that people have been facing. My personal thoughts. It is imperative that the political officials follow the decrees under natural law that provides so much financial security to the people in our country. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. This must be implemented. The decrees under natural law. Our people are suffering. This needs to stop. So it is. Nanaimo Hope's new self-care center will give people permission to rest, reflect, and reconnect. A heritage home on Wallace Street in Nanaimo has been converted into a self-care center in what the owner calls a first-of-its-kind space. Most people that walk through the door immediately feel the sense of relief, said owner Jessica Schaefer. Schaefer started the membership-based community self-care center called My Inner Harbor in November. So it's very similar to a gym. It's a monthly membership, and you can come in anytime during our open hours. Come in and use the space for as long as or as short as you want. Use any space that you want and then leave again, she said. The center has 4 main spaces on the main floor. One for body, mind, spirit, and community. The motto and entire philosophy of the spaces is based on 3 words. Yes, 3 words. Rest, reflect, and reconnect, said Schaefer. We want to provide a place for people to rest, to reflect on where they're at in their life and what they need, and then also reconnect with themselves and their needs and with other people, she says. Now on to the video.
Care Center that opened in Nanaimo last year. Members can enjoy spaces dedicated to the mind, body, spirit, and community. Here's Stacey Ross.
When entering this lovely heritage home on Wallace Street in Nanaimo, this is what happens.
Most people that walk through the door immediately feel that sense of relief, just like that, like.
That's exactly what Jessica Schaefer was hoping for when she started My Inner Harbor.
We have 4 main self-care spaces on the main floor. Body, mind, spirit, and community.
My Inner Harbor is a membership-based community healthcare center.
So it's very similar to a gym. It's a monthly membership, and you can come in anytime during our open hours, use the space for as long or as short as you want, use any space that you want, and then leave again.
Its motto and the entire philosophy of this space is based on 3 words.
Rest, reflect, and reconnect.
This is our mind room.
We want to provide a place for people to rest and be able to reflect on their life and where they're at and what they need, and then also reconnect with themselves and their needs and other people.
This is our body room.
Jessica, who spent 10 years working one-on-one with clients as a registered psychotherapist, came up with the idea of creating this space years ago, but the timing wasn't right to open the doors until this past November.
It's something that hasn't been done before, so it feels very exciting to get to see this dream become a reality and to hear so much of the positive feedback that people who have already come in, members that have already joined, just really deeply appreciate the space.
The work done by members here is varied.
Sometimes that's going to be, I need to just sit in the body room and do some breath work. Sometimes that's going to be like, oh, I'm feeling playful and creative. I just want to draw. I want to color. Sometimes that might be like, oh, goal setting. I absolutely need to do some work today, writing the things down.
Jessica says often it's logistics and everyday tasks and pressures that get in the way of taking care of ourselves.
So I started thinking, what if there was somewhere we could go that didn't have the laundry, didn't have the dishes, and you could just pop in, do your self-care, and leave.
There are daily drop-in rates as well as discounts for youth and seniors. There's even a children's area with a goal of making My Inner Harbor truly multi-generational and barrier-free. And most importantly, Jessica says, is to give yourself permission to take care of yourself.
You'd never say to your best friend, oh, you don't have time to do that thing for yourself today. No, gotta do your dishes instead. You'd never say that to your best friend. You'd say, go have that nap. Go read your book. Rest. We need to actually treat ourselves with the kindness that we treat other people.
There may be a for sale sign outside My Inner Harbor, but don't worry. The lease runs through April next year, and the owners don't ever want to see it go.
Oh, she's beautiful. Personal thoughts. This concept of a self-care center is definitely needed in all communities, changing the course of action from a society driven on labor-intensive work habits to personal self-care. When you take the time to rest, reflect, and reconnect, you expand your creative talents and abilities while experiencing a fulfilled sense of peace, joy, and love. So it is. I'm Cindy Lorraine Grace, and it has been an honor to have you here today at CLG Viewpoint. Have a wonderful day, and see you tomorrow, Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, and under natural law, Divina Vita, day 22, year 0035. Until we meet again, see you next time. And so it is. Thank you.